Earlier in the year, we talked about the difference between a and the, or some and the, when we were talking about articles, and it was just a quick discussion. But think back to that. Um, because what we did as grammar along with that was to look at a system that in French exists, gender, that doesn't exist as strongly in English, and that every noun has gender. This lesson should be fairly easy for you if you paid attention to that lesson and memorized the patterns like, oh, I know that it's masculine because, I know that it's feminine because, and then the exceptions like isma, asma, akland, aj, or on endings, right? This lesson is learning how to say this, that, these, and those. D'accord? And then I'll get into a second part of the lesson. There's another part. But first, this, that, these, and those. What I want you to ask yourself is, what's the difference between the, as in the dog, or this dog? D'accord? Or what if we say that dog? What's the difference between this dog and that dog? D'accord? And the distinction between these and those will be similar. These dogs and those dogs. What's the difference there? Because that's going to play into this lesson. So maybe pause the video real quick and just take some time to think. This book, that book. This pen, that pen. What is the distinction between them? D'accord? Now, once you've done that, we can get into defining this and that. Because here's the thing. The difference between this and that doesn't really exist in French, at least not the way that it does in English. There's not a separate word for this and that. I mean, think of how tough that would be to have a word for this in both the masculine and feminine and plural. Well, not plural because that's these and those. And a word for that in both the masculine and feminine. So they only have one word that means both this and that. But we have to learn the different masculine and feminine forms. So you've probably seen this word before. Let's use a masculine word, problème. There's one of the exceptions that I asked you to learn. Ends in a naked E, but it is masculine. If you want to say this problem, you say ce problème. D'accord? So not le problème, the problem, or un problème, a problem, but ce problème, this problem, or that problem. It means both of them, like I said. D'accord? That's the word for this and that in the masculine. So ce livre, ce chien, ce garçon, right? That's it. D'accord? Just like le. And you use it in a lot of the same ways. Now, what if we have a feminine ending? And I also chose a tricky one that ends in on. If you have a feminine word and you want to say this or that, for example, question, it's cette question instead of la or une, cette question. D'accord? This or that question. So it would be likewise cette fille or cette table or cette lampe. D'accord? This lamp, that lamp, etc. So those are the two basic ones to know to say this and that is ce and cette. Now, you have the added problem in French, just like you have L apostrophe in front of things that begin with a vowel, right? You have an added problem in French that what if I have a word that begins with a vowel? D'accord? So what if I have, let's do the feminine first, this friend. Well, this friend, this is pronounced set in the feminine, cet ami. And I think that sounds fine. And I think for a French person, well, I know for a French person that sounds fine, right? Cet ami, you've got a consonant sound that can begin this next word, cet ami. D'accord? So that's fine. But what if I want to say ce and ami? It's not going to become C apostrophe. D'accord? There's a special form. And so this is one of the big things you want to commit to memory, and that most people, you're most likely to get wrong on a quiz, is that there's a special form in the masculine before a vowel. D'accord? So if you have a masculine word that begins with a vowel, you're going to use the special word set, d'accord? Which sounds just like the feminine. C-E-T, cet ami, d'accord? To say this or that friend. If you want to say this man, cet homme, d'accord? Again, sounds like a feminine article. It's not an article, it's an adjective, but it sounds just like you would be saying la, because it sounds set. It sounds the exact same as the feminine, but it's not. D'accord? So voilà. Now, if you want to say in the plural, d'accord, whether you're saying these or those, it's ces. D'accord? Ces idées. These are those friends. Ses amis. D'accord? Pretty straightforward in the plural. You don't have to worry about masculine and feminine. So in fact, we could make a chart. Let's make a chart down below. If I want to say this or that, and I got the plural, I think that's what I would always ask myself first is if it's plural, I know it's going to be say. Okay? So when you're doing the quiz, ask yourself first, is it plural? Bon. To say these or those, it's say. Okay? I would ask myself next, if it's singular, is it feminine? If it's feminine, you know you're going to use set. You don't have to look at the beginning of the word. In fact, that's the last thing you want to look at. Is it masculine? Okay. If it's masculine, does it begin with a vowel or no? If it begins with a vowel, you use set. And if it doesn't, you'll use so. D'accord? So set, and say. Those are your 4 forms. So let's look real quick, just to recap using these bullets. So, set, and set all mean both this and that. There's no distinction in French, for now, there will be in just a minute, between this and that. It's the same word. So, set. D'accord? Say is the plural, and it means both these and those. D'accord? So, voilà. And you only use set if you have a masculine word and a vowel. D'accord? All right. Now, this is called the demonstrative adjective. If you haven't answered that question to yourself, what's the difference between the and this/that? The difference between the and this/that is that when you use this and that, you're pointing usually to something. You don't have to be physically pointing, but you're specifying with even greater specificity what you're talking about. So we call this the demonstrative adjective. Instead of saying the, you're saying this. You're demonstrating, usually physically by pointing, demonstrating what exactly you're talking about. Cool. So what if we want to specify between this book and that book? Well, I've already told you that it's ce regardless. Cool. So what French people do if they want to specify and they want to say this book and make sure that you know it's this book, they add the word, and you should know this word already, ici. Ici means here. D'accord? Actually, I'm going to add it right down here. Ici means here. D'accord? So you're going to add a shortened form and say ce livre-ci. That means this book here. D'accord? Likewise, if you want to say that book, now if you haven't answered the question, what's the difference between this and that? Well, it's several things. Proximity is the main one. If it's physically close to you, this, or far from you, that. But it can be more complicated than that because we won't get into it unless you ask in class. So if you want to say that book and specify that it's something that's further away, you add the word la, which you should know la and là-bas from Unit 1. Ce livre-là, that book. Likewise, if you want to say these books and specify that it's these, you're going to say ces livres-ci. These and this and these are both close to you, and those you'll add la. Ces livres-là, those books there. So that's an added thing that you will have to worry about on quizzes. Am I saying this or that? I need to add ci and la. So you need to be prepared with those 2 words. Ci, which again should be easy because of ici, and la, which should be easy because you already know the word for there. So again, just to recap, French people say this book here, that book there. Okay? They specify. All right. Practice on the back. I'm just going to do one of them with you. So you have to use your knowledge of gender, number, and vowel sounds to fill in the blanks with the appropriate demonstrative adjectives, so set, or say, as well as adding the suffix si or la based on whether it's this / these and that / those. Okay? So I'm going to walk through the logic of the first one. So number one, I see the word séance, which we know from Unit 1 is a viewing. Okay? That looks like a feminine word to me. So I'm going to say, well, first of all, it's not plural, so it's not say. And it looks feminine, so I'm going to say that it's set. D'accord? So cette séance. Now, here's a mistake people often make is that they'll be like, oh, I have to fill in the second blank with something. What do I do? And they'll just add something random because they're not sure. For this activity on the quiz, you will have to look at the English. So eyes over to the right, that viewing is later at night. We're referring to that viewing mentally. We're setting it apart as further away from us. This doesn't have a physical distance from us. So I know if it's that, it's got to be la that I add, not si. So you have to pay attention to that as well. A little bit trickier than just choosing gender and number. Cool? So looking at number 2, some of them don't have the second blank. So number 2 doesn't have the second blank. Okay, so there is another grammar lesson. So why don't you pause and go ahead and do those, and then you'll continue in just a moment. So the next part of the grammar lesson is saying which or what. You learned in the junior high that the word quel means what, and it's not 100% false, but que and que as in like qu'est-ce que and quoi, those definitely mean what. Now, quel does mean what. Like we would say, what show are you watching? However, we in English have another word that is a synonym in that particular situation. We could say, which show are you watching? Now, this is where English is a little bit annoying because which one are we using? Well, French, how do I want to say this? French specifies whether or not the type of what is a noun or an adjective. And when we say quel, we're using an adjective. Think about it. When I say what show, I'm asking for more information about the show. I'm asking you to describe the show or to say what show within a series of possible shows. I'm using an adjective to describe show, as in give me more information. Cool. It's an adjective that asks for more information by describing the noun as what show. So a little confusing maybe at first, but grammatically that's what's going on there. And that's how you choose between quel, which means what or which. It's an adjective, and it's always going to describe a noun. It's always going to have a noun attached to it. Or que. Okay. Anyways, let's get into the different forms of quel, which I'm pretty sure you've seen all this before. So if I'm describing or asking for information about a masculine thing, what is the plan? Cool. We're going to use quel in the masculine form. Looks just like this. Quel est le plan? Cool. If I want to say which classes are you taking, quel cours suivez-vous? It sounds the same. Quel, same. Boom. Now, in the feminine, you add an L and an E. Now, this is one thing I didn't tell you. Quel also means which, what, and what a. So it's not necessarily a question word. You can say, quelle surprise. What a surprise. Cool. So you could say, oh, quelle catastrophe. What a disaster. Or, quel beau cadeau. What a beautiful gift. Cool. You use quel at the beginning. And it's not asking a question. All right, so that's the form of quel. Nothing surprising here. You're used to doubling the L and adding an E. You've seen that before, both with verbs and with adjectives. D'accord? So what questions do you have? Quelle question avez-vous? This one on the quiz is going to be much, much easier. So if we were to make a chart, the masculine singular, quel, d'accord? The feminine singular, quel, the masculine plural, quel, the feminine plural, quel, d'accord? Which all sound the same. quel, and quel. And sometimes I'll say that. It'll probably be annoying. I'll say, yeah, you have to remember quel, and quel for the quiz. I always do that. Anyways, that is the grammar. The actual form of it is super easy. It's just remembering that it means which, what, and whata, and maybe knowing. I think I'll probably ask as a bonus, describe to me the difference between que what and quel what. The answer is that quel is an adjective. Okay? There's one of your bonuses for the quiz. All right, let's do a practice together. So, using quel, what is your question? Notice that ta question, feminine, we know anyways because on endings. Is it plural? No. Quelle est ta question? Easy. D'accord? So go ahead and do those for practice, and then you'll be able to check your answers in Google Docs. D'accord? So that's it. Au revoir.